Hello and welcome to Reinventing Nerds. Today we have a special guest from Orange County, California. Her name is Lydia Chiu. Lydia is a partner at JubJub Interactive, which is a web application development company also based in Orange County. Lydia has over 15 years of programming and web development experience, and she has a deep understanding of content management systems and enterprise application development. Lydia has a great story for us today about her development of her own leadership skills and working in her company as a partner. And we'll get to that. But first, I want to welcome Lydia. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Joanie. It's great to be here. I really appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to have our chat today.
Yeah, me too. It's so nice to have you here. And I was just really curious. My first question for you is like, we're all working from home mostly, and I'm wondering what web developers do. Are you from home or you do work in your office?
Yeah, I think we had it pretty easy. We consider ourselves pretty fortunate. We were in an office, actually. We were in two offices. So we have an office in Orange County and one in Wyoming, Cheyenne, Wyoming. But through periods of our company, we've worked remotely, and it's not uncommon for us to go and work on site with a client or something. So we're all kind of prepared to work remotely. We already
Mhm.
had a VoIP phone system for the business, and we were already doing, several hours of Zoom a day with our
Yeah.
clients prior to this. So yeah, we're pretty fortunate in the transition. So now we're all remote again. It's pretty business as usual for us.
Yeah, that's actually what I have found with so many software developers. It's like, well,
Mhm.
it's easy to convert. And just for the listeners who might be chiming in a little bit later, we're in the still in the midst of the pandemic.
Yeah.
And yeah, handling that. And this is, really fantastic work for you, Lydia, doing web development because that's where everyone's going today. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you're really busy, even though a lot of companies have had challenges. I'm guessing you guys are doing all right. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate. We count ourselves very fortunate. We don't specialize in any particular industry,
Mhm.
so because of that, we have seen our clients. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster for a lot of our clients. We do have clients in hospitality that have been hit
Yeah.
really hard, and we have clients that were initially hit hard, but have come back stronger than ever. And so, like life sciences, I think
Hmm.
anybody in life sciences right now
Hmm.
is doing really well. So yeah, but overall, we consider ourselves very fortunate and
Yeah.
try to do what we can to help our clients that have been adversely affected.
Oh, nice. Well, I want to start out by asking you a little bit about your journey and what inspired you to become a web designer? Was it something like from when you were a kid or when you were starting to work or yeah, how did it start?
Yeah, so I always, I do have a pretty good story for this actually.
Hmm.
So my mother was a computer science teacher. And this is a long time ago. So this is like in the 80s.
Wow.
She was a computer science teacher. She was a math major, math and computer science teacher.
Hmm.
I grew up, we had a computer in the house. I learned how to program like basic and, we had an Apple IIe and I was doing that from very early age. And my mother told me, I really think that you should go into computer science in college. And so when I hit my teen years, I was like, no way, I'm going to be a doctor.
Of course, right? You had to rebel against mom, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And so, mom was always right. But I had a journey. So I think that what it's taught me, so I started off as pre-med and I ended up not really liking that. And I went into environmental engineering and I did like that. But a lot of my work a lot of my work involved analyzing data and large data and becoming familiar with how to work with large data sets and databases and that type of thing. And I had gone overseas to try to kind of check that off my list as well. I lived overseas and I was working on a research project. And when I came back, I had applied to go to graduate school in environmental engineering. And I came back and it was 97, and my heart really just wasn't in it. And I know that you cannot start a PhD program with your heart not in it and expect to finish
Certainly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so at that point, it was 97, and pretty much anybody with any kind of technical background could get a job. And I got a job first working at Texas Instruments, and I was kind of sort of I was working in their engineering department. And from there, I got a job with an internet startup, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So I got a job working in the professional services division of what it would become Vignette Corporation,
Hmm.
and kind of rode the whole first internet wave and totally pivoted my career.
I love a story like that too, because especially for younger people who are listening or viewing, realizing that you don't always have to have it all figured out
Hmm.
early on, and there are opportunities to make change, and having some of these skills like programming can,
Yeah.
get you far no matter where you go. Hmm.
Exactly. I mean, because really, and I know that these days in curriculum in lower middle school, I see it with my daughter in high school. They're really trying to get kids to have kind of a baseline level understanding of coding.
Hmm.
And really, I do think that in any industry that you're in, it will help. It's sort of like writing. I think I see those as both kind of like basic skills that lead to success. If you have to be able, no matter what you do, a lot of what I do these days is writing. I write a lot of proposals, and we write. We have to make things that are compelling, and convince people to spend a lot of money with us. And so, no matter what you're doing, I think writing and coding are kind of both fundamental skills that I think people are going to need. And if you have those skills, then you can pretty much, there's a lot of different areas you can go
Hmm.
into.
Well, that is so interesting, and that really sort of gets into some of the meat of the podcast, and what we talk about is,
Hmm.
what's important, as move into leadership and communicate. But writing, we haven't
Hmm.
talked about that as much. So
Yeah.
really important point, and it's one that the people often don't emphasize as much as
Hmm.
being good at that. So,
Yeah.
hmm,
Yeah. It's huge, and I can see it's really difficult. I think that the whole push towards STEM education and STEAM
mhm,
education, where it's including the arts, I can really see it. I think as a manager, or as someone who works with clients, the ability to communicate and the ability to express yourself and the ability to think creatively. I think so much of that comes from those other disciplines. If you're
mhm.
just focused on the technical, that I mean that can be really good, but you might lose out on some other opportunities that way, I think.
Mhm. Yeah, exercising all parts of the brain, you might
Hmm.
say. Huh. Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you then, how did you end up becoming a partner at JubJub?
So I had a couple of friends who started JubJub, actually.
Mhm.
One of whom became my husband.
Aha, that's a little mysterious. Why I've not, yeah,
Yeah.
huh? Interesting.
And so while I was working at Vignette and in their professional services organizations, I was building large websites. And so I was very familiar with aspects of website development. And my husband had started the company actually as a creative outlet. He worked for a company that became GE. So,
Mhm. Right.
huge corporate company, and he was in IT, and so he started it as an outlet. And but it was a good time
Mhm.
to start a company, and as they got more and more clients, I was also getting a little bit tired of traveling all the time for work, and so eventually I left my gig with Vignette, and we put all of our eggs in one basket with
Mhm.
JubJub.
Wow.
So
So that brings up a whole other level of working and partnering with your spouse.
yeah.
You two must get along really well to work together.
Well, no, I think we'd known each other since college. We'd known there's a lot of
Mhm.
I mean that's a very common it's a common question when people find out that
Mhm.
we work together. And part of what helps is I run the development side of things because that's sort of my background, design
Right.
development. And then he runs the hosting operation. That's
Okay.
so his
Mhm.
background is IT and
Mhm.
servers and all that stuff that I don't know anything about. And so it kind of helps that we're kind of each, we have our own dominion within the company.
Mhm.
But also, I mean, I think anytime you start a business with partners, there's a huge amount of trust that you need. And it can be, you're going to run into uh, bumps along the way.
Mhm.
And if you already kind of know how you're going, if you kind of have a way to like resolve conflict amongst each other,
Mhm.
then I mean, who there's no one I trust more in the world than my husband. And so it's actually kind of a nice from a business partner standpoint, it's nice to just have that foundation.
Yeah.
And yeah, we make it work, but we also, we each have our own things.
Mhm.
So he goes on his bike rides, and I don't try to up his hobbies as much, and he doesn't do mine either.
Oh, good. So,
So
like, outside of work, it's not like 24/7.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Huh. Interesting. No,
Exactly.
your point about trust is huge. I mean, that is a really big barrier for a lot of
Mhm.
folks working together is not having that trust. So when
Yeah.
you already have that and a really solid bond, you have each other's backs. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. If you know you're going to work through it,
Yeah.
then and you already know that you have the other person's best interest at heart. I we are able to make it work. But I know that like not everybody, like my mom tried to work with my dad. I think it lasted about half a day. And
Yeah.
then
That's myself and my husband. Yeah.
yeah.
We've collaborated in a couple things, but short
Yeah.
term. Yeah. No, but you also raise a third thing here, which is the conflict and being able to resolve it. Because,
Mhm.
it's not ignoring the fact that conflicts do arise and
Right.
saying, okay, so we know we have the tools and we trust each other that we will work it through rather than just
Yes.
letting it fester. So,
Yeah.
another important lesson for people who are working together, just in any way, but especially as partners.
Yeah. Yeah. It is. And I mean, if you've been in a relationship long enough and have worked through and and have committed to like, yeah, we're going to make this work. and,
Yeah.
and that just kind of translates into the business as well. So,
Hmm.
but like I said, it
Interesting.
does kind of help that like we each sort of have our own area of the business where like kind of have final say on the development side and he has final say on
Hmm.
the hosting side.
Okay, I got that. Yeah, that's another good lesson there. So
Yeah.
you weren't always leading a company. I mean, you started out and you were at Vignette. So how did you move up there and into leadership kind of roles?
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, when I first started there, I was a little. I think I had the kind of like imposter syndrome thing that we see
Mhm.
so many people have. I mean, um, I I won't say I did not embellish my resume,
Good.
but I feel like I had done a lot of the stuff that they had wanted. I mean, but part of it is that the job market then was so crazy with the internet boom that if you had any kind of technical background, you could
Mhm.
get a job. But I had to learn so much so quickly.
Mhm.
But yeah, I started as a consultant and I worked my way up. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact the initial levels of leadership really were how much client exposure do they feel like they feel comfortable with you having.
Uh-huh.
And so I think a lot of it was communication, to be honest. I think a lot of it boiled down to communication skills. So they felt comfortable, my bosses felt comfortable having me interact directly with clients to either assess how the project was going, or communicate options, and all of that kind of stuff. And I have to say, I'll give some credit, even though my mom is the one that taught me to code. My dad is the one. He has a camera repair shop. He still has it to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working customer service from like sixth grade on in
Yeah.
the summers. And
Uh-huh.
I think just the comfort of being able to tell people, to express things to people. And it's not always good news, like especially large enterprise software stuff. Sometimes it's like, look, what you have, it's going to cost a lot of money to get to where you want to be. And
Mm-hmm.
here's some various options. But I think that actually, I mean, the technical, as far as kind of rising up the ranks in my prior job, I mean, the technical aspect of it is a given. Like, you have to have the technical capacity,
Mm-hmm.
but in order to, I think in order to rise towards a leadership position, a lot of it has to do with client interaction and communication skills.
So, what would be some key factors to look for to see if somebody is ready to be positioned in front of a client?
Yeah, that's that's kind of tricky. I think right now I've been trying, this has actually been a focus the last couple of years of
Mm-hmm.
mine, is trying to groom our employees that are more junior level to being more senior level.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we do now is we actually have them treat me as the client. And I
Right.
see how we kind of see how they're presenting things, see how professional they are when they present it to me,
Mm-hmm.
because I figure that's sort of like, it's a safe place for them to experiment with how they might convey things to a client.
So,
And
okay.
yeah, go ahead. No.
I was gonna say, are you a happy client or a dissatisfied client? Or
It depends on how much coffee and chocolate I've had.
oh, that's good that you're a moody client. That's even better. So they don't know what they're in for.
Exactly. No, I think most of the time I try to be nice about it, but I think I'm probably harder on them than most of our clients would be.
Yeah.
And not hard, like it's more just, I really would prefer for us to be over prepared than under
Mhm.
prepared
That
when
makes sense.
we're presenting. And so I think there's some people that are like that by nature. That's just, who they've grown up to be, where they're always over prepared. They're always at the meeting 5 minutes early. They're
Mhm.
always, and those people are really easy to identify because,
Mhm.
they always turn in everything I asked for exactly on time. It's a little more challenging, I think, especially with some technical folks where they're used to, I'm going to go code for 24 hours and then
Mm.
turn something back into you. and um, and which is, a lot of brilliant coders that I've worked with work that way,
Mhm.
but it can be challenging to kind of translate that into to figure out whether that is, whether they will be part of the team that does actually convey this to the client, or whether there will always be kind of a and really, there, I think, in doing what we do, there's a couple of different branches. So
Mhm.
one is more client heavy and the other is just super technical. But you do, even when it's super technical, you have to be able to communicate with a client in order to understand and deliver deliver the best product for them.
Right. Well, that makes sense. So it's not just being able to send out messages, it's to receive them as well. Yeah.
Yes, exactly, it's a good point.
Mhm. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, now that you've moved to this point of, sort of coaching and role playing with others to do this, what did you have to do to get to that level yourself? I mean, have you run into challenges trying to develop others to be more senior?
Yes. I think one of the things, you know, as I when I talk to other business owners or leaders or managers, I think a very common thing, and you probably hear this all the time, is learning how to delegate and learning how
Yep.
to like feel, especially if
Mhm.
you come from the like execution side of things where I know I can do something in a certain amount of time, and rather than hand that off and give them the chance to get better at that thing so that they can do it in a similarly short
Right.
amount of time, I'm like, I'll just handle it.
Yep.
Getting out of that mindset is, I mean, I find myself, even to this day, like fighting myself. This would only take me 5 minutes, and it's going to take me more than that to manage it.
Mhm.
But again, in order to mentor the person and give them the opportunity to build the same tasks, we have to delegate it. So that is an ongoing, I think, just an ongoing thing of figuring that out.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a little bit of a long-term perspective is where you're
Mhm.
at. Like you have
Yeah.
to invest the time up front. It
Yes.
takes longer than it would to do the task, but
Yeah.
hopefully they're going to be able to continue doing it, and then
Yeah.
yeah, later. Hmm.
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, it's tricky. I think that's one of the challenges of leadership for sure. I mean, I think that um the it all boils down to that has to be, I mean, it has to be a big goal. Like I was talking with somebody about how, you have to be able to, you should be replacing yourself if you haven't already replaced
Hmm.
yourself. And then you need to be able to free yourself up to be able to do all of the bigger picture things and all of that kind of stuff. And sometimes I feel like, wow, I've really done a good job of that. And then sometimes when I'm answering some emails, I'm like, no, I haven't quite figured this part out yet. So
Well,
it's
it sounds like
I'm
yeah.
constantly learning.
Right, but you also have some humility there too. I mean, as taking your ego out of the equation, right?
Mhm.
And being able to replace yourself, that's
Yeah.
big. I think that takes a while for a lot of folks to get to that point,
Mhm.
and as being a leader and maturing in that process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true, actually.
Yeah. In addition to the whole, just is it easier or quicker and all that, but like being able to feel replaceable and yeah, you're not the center always. Yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting. Mhm.
exactly, exactly.
Well, I wanted to sort of circle back to your initial story of
Mhm,
your mom being a
mhm.
teacher in computer science when you
Yeah,
were in school. And I mean, wow, having a female role model like that,
yeah.
that's just, I don't hear that very often. And frankly, in the world of software development, there aren't that many women still.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering what your story is in terms of that. What has been your experience as a woman in the field of software development?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this, how to,
Mhm.
how to answer it, because yes, I think, in some ways I was very fortunate, just as you mentioned, to have that role model, to have early exposure,
Mhm.
um, to never. I think if anything, I was a little naive when I left my parents' home about the differences in, I mean, in how I might be treated
Mhm.
in a certain field. And um, I didn't major into computer science in
Right.
college, and so I didn't feel that massive, the ratios there where you go and there's 10 women and 100 men or something in a class.
Mhm.
I didn't feel that. I was a biology major and it was like 50-50.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I you know I but I it does, I mean, still to this day, you look around, at a developer conference, there aren't as many women, there aren't as many women speaking, there aren't as many women attending, even in this day and age. And so I think it's great that I think that the conversations are there and people are recognizing, all of the unconscious bias, but it's there's still a long way to go. And even just me personally, what I can speak to, there are, for the most part, I think on a day-to-day basis, I don't feel like it's a big thing. But
Good.
when we put out job application, or when we're trying to hire, there's still a big for design side of things. The applications are fairly equivalent between men and women, but on the coding side of things, again, I see a lot more applications from men than I do from women. And I have had experiences where someone will call my husband, one of our clients will call my husband and ask for advice. And he's like, well, you really should talk with Lydia. They don't always know that we're married, actually.
Mm-hmm.
They say, well, you really should talk with Lydia because she's the one that specializes in this. And so they call me and I'll tell them the answer. And they don't like or not the answer, but I'll give them, some advice or something. They don't like what I have to say, and they'll call him back, and he'll say the exact same. I mean, we've got I've had this happen to me a few times where I will say the exact same thing that either my husband or sometimes it's one of our developers,
Mm-hmm.
And they are more likely. I've had that. I'm not imagining it. I've had it happen where they'll just like, oh, okay, then it's like, okay, then I guess that really is how it is, right?
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
even though it's my area of expertise,
Mm-hmm.
and so I have experienced things like that, and it is frustrating, but I do think it's getting better.
Yeah. Well,
At least people are acknowledging that it's an issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. And I mean, even just being out there and showing everyone how good you are at what you do is good role modeling for other women and hopefully young girls too to get into the field. Yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. Well, I want to hear a little bit about JubJub for a few minutes here for
Oh,
our
sure.
listeners and viewers. Like, what is it that, you offer and how can people reach you?
Yeah, sure. So we're a full service web development
Mhm.
agency, and we offer design development and hosting. And that is actually one of the things that sort of sets us apart is the fact that we have all of those skills in house.
Mhm.
We're actually just talking to a prospect that was running into problems with their web application, and they weren't sure whether it was server side or whether it was the code. And we have the skills all in-house to be able to address all of that, instead of like, okay, well, we're going to we can look at the code, but we have to talk to the hosting company for this or something like
Okay.
that. So we can address the full picture. And yeah, and so we also have a very, as you mentioned earlier, we are experts in content management systems, and
Mhm.
so we do WordPress. A lot of sites these days are on WordPress, but we also specialize in other platforms like Expression Engine and Craft and Drupal, and kind of more true content management, data driven sites. And
Mhm.
because of that, we can build large scale sites that have a lot of content, maybe multilingual, those types of things. And you can reach
Interesting.
us. Our website is jubjub.com. And my email is lydia@jubjub.com, and you can feel free to reach me.
Excellent. Yeah, I hope some people do because you have a great story and also some really important services as we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to find all of that in one place. So, yeah, really good. Well, this has been really interesting hearing your story. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being willing to speak to my audience here on Reinventing Nerds. So, thank you so much, Lydia.
Thank you so much, Joanie. It was so fun to be here and really an honor. I appreciate you asking me to be on.
Well, excellent. Thanks to you and thanks to our listeners and our viewers. We can find us at reinventingnerds.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. And we'll see you next time.